Good morning, members of the media. Thank you for joining us here this morning. Our topic for today's press conference is advertised, is the redevelopment of the L.F. Wade International Airport. In November 2014, when the Minister of Finance first told Bermudians that the OBA intended to privatize the L.F. Wade International Airport, the Progressive Labor Party was quick to raise concerns about this project. We said from the outset that it is wrong for the country to privatize a vital and strategic asset, and under no circumstances should any deal proceed without a tender. We said that we need to focus on rebuilding our tourism product and not borrow money off the balance sheet to construct a building that will not bring more tourists to our shores. 15 months later, our concerns have manifested themselves in the form of a contract negotiated by Minister Richards and approved by the One Bermuda Alliance cabinet that sells the people of this country short. This deal contains every single element the Minister of Finance and the One Bermuda Alliance have railed against for years. There is no open tender, no proof or surety of value for money. It started with a personal 25-year relationship between Bob Richards and a friend of his in Canada. This deal sacrifices the country's most single important physical asset, transferring it to the control of a Canadian company while stripping the government of potential revenue. What will be the largest capital project in this country's history has no involvement from the Ministry of Public Works and no oversight from the Office of Project Management and Procurement as required by the Good Governance Act. This deal proves there is a double standard in the One Bermuda Alliance's vision for Bermuda, as it proves that the OBA does not believe the rules should apply to them. How can Premier Dunkley look school children in the eye and tell them to work hard and expect success in the One Bermuda Alliance's Bermuda? This deal proves that every day, hard-working people continue to struggle and get little or no justice. Our children go to rodent-infested schools, while foreign companies get tax relief, customs duty exemptions, guaranteed revenue from taxpayer dollars, and free electricity for 30 years. I want the people of Bermuda to know that we in the Progressive Labor Party share their disgust with this airport deal. The portions of this deal which have been released to the public have rightfully outraged the hardworking people who sit around their kitchen tables every month, stretching to cover their own bills. Instead of reducing the cost of living, the OBA wants to use the tax dollars of those hardworking Bermudians to pay the electricity bill for a Canadian company who is taking no risk and isn't even required to preserve the pay and benefits for the staff at the airport. People of Bermuda, this is what poor governance looks like. This is how we get Auditor General reports in 6 years' time, lamenting a complete disregard for rules. This is the standard of governance the people of Bermuda are told to accept from the OBA. Bermuda, we can do better. We can do better by following the Good Governance Act, which was put in place to prevent the very abuses being engaged in by the OBA. We can do better by ensuring value for money and putting the largest capital project in this country's history out to an open tender. We can do better by ensuring that the pay and benefits for the largely Bermudian staff at the airport are guaranteed. And finally, we can do better by not giving a Canadian company who did not have to bid a blank check guaranteed by every taxpayer for 30 years. The Progressive Labor Party remains committed to doing better by getting Bermudians a better deal, and we will not rest until this current deal is stopped. We will use all measures and means at our disposal to ensure that the people of this country are not saddled for 30 years with a sweetheart deal that Bob Richards negotiated with his friends in Canada. In my capacity as chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, I have written to the Ministry of Finance to request the schedules that are an integral part of this contract. These schedules put firm numbers to what the OBA has committed this country's taxpayers to fund for the next 30 years. I would encourage members of the media to file a patty request for these schedules so they can share with the people of this country the actual dollars that Minister Bob Richards has committed us to pay for a generation. In closing, I would like to remind Premier Dunkley that 75% of Bermudians oppose this deal. All sectors of society, from executives on Pitts Bay roads to executives in our community clubs to the man in the street and the woman attending church on Sunday, oppose this deal. In a democracy, the people are supposed to be supreme and not the politicians the people elected. Now is the time for those who have spoken in opposition to this deal to raise their voice a little bit louder and make it clear to the One Bermuda Alliance that we can do better. Now is the time for the media to examine and report on the actual costs of the privatization of our airport and what that will mean for our children. Now is the time for Bermudians across this country to raise their voices and say no to Minister Bob Richards' plan that privatizes our airport to his friends in Canada. I thank you very much, and I will now pass to the Shadow Minister of Transport, who has more remarks on the Airport Development Agreement.
Good morning. It would appear that there is a financial cloud hovering over the protracted attempts by the One Bermuda Alliance government to get the much-heralded Bermuda International Airport project airborne, which remains grounded because reportedly the Canadian Commercial Corporation did not intend to be the primary source of financing. From what can be determined, they plan on coming on board as a co-signer in the unlikely event that Acorn was unable to raise the funds themselves. Meanwhile, it is reasonable to believe that the rationale for Acorn selling off their controlling stake in Quito, Ecuador, was to raise the funds for the Bermuda project. However, it is our understanding that the reason the OBA are remaining silent about the project is that at this time is because the crucial financial package is not yet in place. Consequently, neither the Minister of Finance nor the Premier have been prepared to update this country as to the real progress that has been made. Meanwhile, in this context, the Minister has both promised and talked about an increase in jobs and job security for those who are currently working at the airport, in particular the Department of Airport Operations. However, in this regards, let us not forget the fight that we had to make in order to get the Canadians to guarantee that no Bermudians would lose their jobs in this transition to their respective roles. Yet, while we have that promise on record, the question remains: what about the existing benefits? What about the existing long-term job security that these individuals currently have? Will their job security remain in place? Will their benefits remain the same? Will their job descriptions remain the same if Acorn decide to utilize Section J found on page 6 of this agreement? Section J introduces a gray area permitting the new employer to provide all the jobs, but their job security lay in the hands of project co-management, who, as I have been made to understand, are looking at starting a corporate restructuring phase months after the project co officially takes over. In the larger scheme of things, those on the ground at the airport have a sense that without the government's assurance to the contrary, the day-to-day operations of the administration of the L.F. Wade International Airport stands in danger of being compromised. It has been observed that there are several contracts that have stalled at the negotiation stage, and reportedly some others have nearly fallen through, because the international entrepreneurs wanting to invest millions, and in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars into this country via the airport, have had to put their plans on hold because it is not clear who is in charge or who will be in charge over time, if the Canadians will even approve these contracts. Thus, the question has to be asked: if CCC and Acorn are not currently in control of our airport, and even before they lay a single brick towards the foundation of a new facility, how can it be in Bermuda's current best interest that the status of CCC and Acorn has such an impact upon these contracts that are currently being negotiated? While in addition, the same is true for the local entrepreneur who has been in business for years at the airport. Now, some of these employers who have provided goods and services for nearly a decade are at risk of losing their contracts, which have enabled them to support a 100% locally run and owned operation. In discussing the day-to-day and future management of the L.F. Wade International Airport, the view of our airline partners is relevant and instructive. Some of the executives of these airlines have voiced concerns which should be regarded as a cautionary tale. An airline spokesman stated last year that airlines are no longer motivated to introduce and expand services into jurisdictions throughout the Caribbean region that have a high cost of doing business. This is to include departure taxes. It should be noted that Bermuda is second highest in the region, next to Jamaica. This strongly recommends that here in Bermuda, we keep the cost of doing business as low as possible. But at this time, the new airport venture does the exact opposite. Airline representatives went on to say that it is an unsustainable policy to have a government raise departure taxes and then pay equivalent amounts, and in some cases more, back to the airlines in minimum revenue guarantees, or MRGs as it is known in the industry. Over time, if we are to accept the OBA government policy and strategy of a new airport that 75% of Bermudians do not wish, and the airlines feel we are in danger of becoming less and less attractive economically by pricing ourselves out of the market for visitors, it is truly time for the Minister of Finance, the Premier, and the Minister of Tourism and Transport to come before this country and demonstrate how this flawed initiative, as they have repeatedly declared, is a good deal for our country. And I will turn it over to our candidate in constituency 13, Diallo Rabin.
Thank you, and good morning, media, and good morning, Bermuda. While on the canvassing trail, the people of constituency 13 have made it abundantly clear what they want and what they do not want. And this should come as no surprise to anyone who talks to these constituents that what they want is their hard work and sacrifice to result in jobs and opportunity in their own country. Their hard work and sacrifice to result in a better life for themselves. Their hard work and sacrifice to result in better futures for their children. The feeling that they are second-class citizens in their own country coming to an end. And Bermuda to once again feel like a place of hope and opportunity. Sadly, this airport deal fails to meet any of that criteria. As parents, can we look our children in the eye and tell them that this deal is good for Bermuda and good for them? With our government in desperate need of revenue, can we truly look our children in the eye and say that revenue is better off being sent to Canada than being spent on diversifying our economy, investing in the training and development of our people, or more importantly, providing our youth with a world-class education? These are the questions that the people of Constituency 13 are asking. Parents are asking on behalf of their children and the generations yet unborn that will be affected by whatever decision is taken on this airport deal. We cannot afford to move forward with this deal without proper consultation and process, and we urge the OBA government to do better when it comes to managing the people's assets and brokering deals on their behalf. Thank you.
Does any member of the media have any questions on our statements?
Any impact in the upcoming budget directly related to this dispute?
Brian, you asked if there'll be any impact on the upcoming budget related to this scheme, and I thank you for that question. The answer to the question is yes, because there was an impact on the budget last year related to this scheme. We saw taxes go up related to this scheme. We saw the fact that the government needed to try to find more space in order to pay for or to start putting a down payment for this airport project. So absolutely, it'll have an effect on the budget. We know that the revenue figures are when we look at them over time, in excess of over $1 billion in a revenue stream over 30 years. In a year-to-year basis, it's a huge amount of money, and the impact that it makes on our budget, where we're talking about $16 to $17 million a year, of course, has a great impact.
You make some serious allegations that this is a deal struck between the finance minister and his friends in Canada. What evidence do you have to support that?
The minister in Parliament got up himself and said that he did not require approval from the cabinet, and he was the sole source to CIBC, who serves as a back channel between ACON. He said that he didn't need a sole source because he's been dealing with CIBC for 25 years. He himself got up and indicted himself in Parliament regarding that fact. So that's what we're saying. The fact of the matter remains that this is a deal that the Minister of Finance misled this country. He came in front of Parliament and told this country that or intimated this country that there is going to be a competitive selection process. He got up and told the people that CCC will select a vendor, when he knew all along that a vendor was already selected. What we are doing is giving this company a blank check. This company has hired a PR firm. This company is doing different things. And all of that money that they are spending is going to be rolled into the project and is going to be ultimately guaranteed by the taxpayers of this country. That is why we're asking for the schedules to see what amount of money has the government guaranteed to pay ACON.
It seems that government, despite whatever protestations the Progressive Labour Party might mount, or anyone with immunity for that matter, is hell-bent on proceeding with this project. An exercise in futility?
Gary, I don't ever believe that democracy is an exercise in futility. I happen to believe that, knowing that this project has a long time to get to the place of where it gets into a place to be executed, that the people of this country will have opportunities to have their say. I think the people of this country, a small segment, will have an opportunity to have their say tomorrow in the election in Constituency 13, to say that, no, we do not want our airport privatized to a Canadian company. And I think there are lots of steps that still have to take place. But we and the Progressive Labour Party are committed to making sure that the people of this country know what deal they're getting themselves into. And I think that it's also incumbent on the media to follow those patty requests, look at those documents, take a deep look into what we are committing ourselves for 30 years. We can talk about, the things and the challenges that we have now, but the effects of this deal will affect future generations, and it is very important that we get it right.
Have you had sight of what those schedules might be?
The schedules are listed in the contract. They're listed in Section 1.1 of the contract, and there's a number of them. But the main ones, I think, that are of concern for the people of this country is what is the level of revenue that we are guaranteeing ACON. The fact of the matter is that ACON does not have to, if the revenue from the airport doesn't meet what is inside of those figures, the taxpayers have to top it up. How is the company taking any risk whatsoever? And if there's a profit, they get to keep the profits, and then only after they make a certain amount of profits, then they get to give stuff back to Bermuda. So if they fall short, we have to pay them. But if they go above, they don't have to pay us until they make extra money. It doesn't make sense. It is not a good deal for Bermudians.
If this did go out to tender with other companies, they would still be required to find the financing that we're talking about. They would still be having to give them a reward over the 30 years of their financing. Where would that be any different from what we're going through now?
Now, where it could be different, and this is where the PLP's plan moving forward is different, is that what we propose is to create an airport authority first. If you create an airport authority first, that now means that the airport authority has real-time decision-making powers, where they don't have to go to the minister, they don't have to go to cabinet, they don't have to go to parliament. Now, the airport authority would then be able to go out and source, put an RFP out there and find the appropriate and the best person for the job. Now, this also allows for the airport authority to be separate financially from the government. So therefore, the airport authority would be the ones that control the airport throughout the 30-year period, while the subcontractor becomes the one that does the building of the airport. And once they finish building the airport, the financier would then come in and pay for whatever the budget was on moving forward.
Still basically on the same format, they want their money back.
The investor will always want their money back. But the thing is that we are not giving away our most lucrative asset to a foreign entity. Now, also, if we go through the airport authority model, which the PLP is proposing, there are other challenges which the way that the method which the OBA are moving forward are facing other challenges from international organizations. One challenge is that under standard practice and procedure, an airport itself can generate a modest profit, which must go back into the redevelopment and or upgrading of said airport. But a concessionaire cannot generate a profit from an airport. Now, what we are going into is that, and where they are facing challenges, I'm pretty sure, is that a concessionaire is trying to be able to be the one that takes the profits away from an airport instead of having the money go back into the airport itself.
Is there confidence that financing for this project is in place?
Uh-oh.
Well,
Go ahead.
the understanding that we have is that when it comes to the financing, one thing that seemingly was overlooked under the OBA's method was the exchange rate. And that exchange rate has seemingly played a pivotal role in where the lack of funding, which has come to my desk, comes into play, where they do not have the funds in order to move forward with this project.